anything and everything.
Do you ever wonder how to? Do you ever wonder why?
About anything and everything. Then Doris is your guide. Anything and everything will open your mind. Anything and everything with Doris. Anything and everything with Doris is online. Remember. Anything and everything with Doris.
Hello, everyone. You are listening to the Anything and Everything podcast, and I'm your host, Doris. This episode is brought to you by Pop Express Carriers for when you need your freight on time. Welcome, everyone, to the second Anything and Everything podcast, and I'm your host, Doris. This week is Thanksgiving, so I thought it'd be nice to keep it lighthearted and give some Thanksgiving trivia and jokes. So I asked my readers from my blog to send in some interesting trivia and funny jokes for today's episode. So if you have the children around, they'll enjoy this too. Before we get started, I would like to begin with thanking our servicemen and women, whether they're in the military, fire department, police department, hospitals, etc. Thank you for all that you do. I also realize that there are many others who work on holidays, and I thank you for spending your holiday serving those who have been blessed to be with family on Thanksgiving. Now, I don't have these in any certain order, so I'm just picking from the papers on the desk. Some people left their names, and some people didn't. Tina says, under which president did Thanksgiving become an annual holiday? Well, that would be Abraham Lincoln. As a nation, the United States has celebrated Thanksgiving off and on since 1774. In 1789, George Washington made a proclamation that the American people should celebrate a day of Thanksgiving to God on November 26th. Some presidents after him continued the tradition, sporadically declaring days of Thanksgiving, but it wasn't until 1863 when Lincoln proclaimed a day of Thanksgiving on the last Thursday in November that it became an annual holiday. Every year after that, presidents proclaimed the last Thursday in November to be a day of Thanksgiving. It was changed to be the fourth Thursday under President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Singwon says, during Chuseok, the Korean Thanksgiving Harvest Festival, they traditionally eat a stuffed food, but it isn't a turkey. So what food do Koreans stuff and eat during Chuseok? I hope I'm saying it right. That answer would be rice cakes. Rice is ground down into a flour, and then water is added to make a rice dough. Then that dough is stuffed with lots of different types of ingredients and formed into small rice cakes, which then are steamed over pine needles. Charlie says, Thanksgiving in the USA is celebrated on the fourth Thursday in November, but when is Canada's Thanksgiving? The second Monday of October. Kyle asked, what year was the celebration that is most commonly considered to be the first Thanksgiving? 1621. This is the celebration that people most often talk about when they're talking about the first Thanksgiving. But there are others that are claimed to be the first Thanksgiving also. There was another celebration in Plymouth in 1623 and one in Boston in 1631. Lewis says, how long did the first Thanksgiving celebration last? Well, that was 3 days. It was celebrated earlier than our current celebration, possibly in late September. And there were about 50 European settlers and maybe 100 Native Americans who attended the 3-day feast. But actually, it wasn't supposed to be 3 days. It became 3 days as the Indians joined in. George says, in what decade did both the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade and America's Thanksgiving Parade start? Well, that decade would be the 20s, but the specific year would actually be 1924. Paul asked, how do both Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade and America's Thanksgiving Parade conclude? Well, it ends with the arrival of Santa Claus. Carly asked, where is the only place in Australia where Thanksgiving is celebrated? Thank you, Carly, because I didn't know this. But that would be Norfolk Island. The custom was brought there by American whaling ships, and it just kind of stuck there. The rest of Australia doesn't celebrate Thanksgiving. Chris says, what is the oldest Thanksgiving parade currently called? That would be the Dunkin' Donuts Thanksgiving Day Parade. Mark asked, what is the wobbly red piece of flesh on top of the beak of a turkey? Well, that is called a snood. And Colette says, what state raises the most turkeys? That's actually Minnesota. And Rashid says, what are the most turkey feathers used for after the turkey is plucked? Animal feed. Oh, Patty asked, in what century were the first pumpkin pies as we know them made? That would be in the 17th century or the 1600s. Although the pumpkin is native to North America, the pumpkin pie was actually first made in England and Europe. It wasn't until the 19th century that pumpkin pies as we know them started showing up in American cookbooks. And John asked, what are turkey chicks called? Poults or turkeylings? And Dennis asked, which president was the first to give a turkey a pardon, a presidential pardon? And that would be Ronald Reagan. Now, John F. Kennedy was the first president on record for unofficially sparing a turkey in 1963. But it wasn't until the Reagan administration in 1987 that a turkey was given an official presidential pardon as a joke. Despite it being a joke, the turkey was spared and put into a petting zoo. In 1989, George H. Bush made it an annual tradition, and each president following him has carried on the tradition. Well, those were all interesting tidbits of Thanksgiving. So, let's get to some jokes. Oh, here's a good one. If pilgrims travel on the Mayflower, then what do college students travel on? The scholarships. And where did they take the Mayflower when it was sick? To the nearest dock. How did Mayflower sailors say hello to each other? They waved. How did the pilgrims bring their cows to America? On a Mayflower. And what would you get if you crossed a turkey with a ghost? A poultrygeist. Why was the turkey in jail? For foul play. What kind of music did the pilgrims like to listen to? Plymouth Rock. Who is never hungry on Thanksgiving? The turkey, because he's already stuffed. What kind of cars would pilgrims drive today? A Plymouth. What do you use to make Thanksgiving bread? Mayflower. Why did the turkey cross the road? To get to the other side. So why shouldn't you look at the turkey dressing? Because it'll make him blush. And what kind of tan did pilgrims get? A Puritan. What do you call Thanksgiving for selfish people? Thanks-taking. Oh, John says, why did the farmer run a steamroller over his potato field on Thanksgiving Day? He wanted to raise mashed potatoes. Why did the turkey cross the road? Because it was Thanksgiving Day and he wanted people to think he was a chicken. That actually came from Rachi. And Charles says, what is a turkey's favorite dessert? Peach gobbler, gobble gobble. Grant said, a lady was picking through the frozen turkeys at the grocery store for Thanksgiving Day, but couldn't find one big enough for her family. So she asked the stock boy, do these turkeys get any bigger? And he says, no ma'am, they're dead. Danny asked, why did the cranberries turn red? Because they saw the turkey dressing. Oh, Billy, why do pilgrims' pants always fall down? Because they wear their belt buckles on their hats. And Luke says, what did the turkey say to the computer? Google, 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 Google. Shawnee says, what did the turkey say to the turkey hunter on Thanksgiving Day? Quack, quack. That's a good one, Shawnee. Caleb wants to know, what key has legs and can't open doors? A turkey. Alex asked, why did the farmer have to separate the chicken and the turkey? Because he sensed foul play. So Pedro says, I was going to serve sweet potatoes with Thanksgiving dinner, but I sat on them. So Westy wanted to know, well, what are you serving now? And he said, squash. So Kevin says, what do you call a turkey on the day after Thanksgiving? Lucky. So here's a good one. Pedro also says, can a turkey jump higher than the Empire State Building? Why, yes, of course it can, because a building can't jump at all. So that was some good stuff, guys. Bobby sent in a Thanksgiving prayer. Now, it's actually says it's author unknown, but it was sent by Bobby. And I'd like to end this episode with a Thanksgiving prayer. Thanksgiving prayer is, thank you, God, for all that grows. Thank you for the sky's rainbows. Thank you for the stars that shine. Thank you for these friends of mine. Thank you for the moon and sun. Thank you, God, for all you've done. Thank you, Bobby. That was a lovely prayer. Going to drink, please don't drive. Make sure you have an Uber or designated driver so that we can see you next week. And that's our show. Thanks for listening. And until we meet again, enjoy every day to its fullest. And God bless.